Welcome to Level Up. I'm Sherelle.
And I'm Danny, and this is the podcast where we talk about health, fitness, and mindset. Advice for online coaches, a big episode ahead.
Yeah, well, obviously Danny and I are online coaches in the space, and we have been for quite some time now, and we've seen a lot of the good and a lot of the not so good, both from like a business and a client and like a personal level. So today we really want to be able to give you guys some practical advice, but then just also have a little bit of a chat about some of the things that we've seen in the industry.
Online coaching has definitely grown over the past few years. And I would say right now it is booming. It seems to be the popular thing, very trendy. A lot of people, they show off that they're an online coach. It's portrayed to be quite a sexy job.
Yep.
And then you and I have been doing this for a long time now. And we sort of realised, hang on a minute, it's not all the glitz and glam, and it's not all about having your laptop on the beach and or being in Europe and being on your laptop with your clients. It's not like that. So, why do you think that it has become so popular and trendy and all of that?
Definitely COVID. I mean, I feel like for a lot of people, that's what pushed them into the online space, especially with the fitness industry. And when we talk about like online coaching, we're obviously in the fitness industry or the health and fitness industry, but there's lots of different types of online coaching, right? Like you can get coaching online for anything. Like I'm sure you can get it for like cooking, and you can get it for mindset, and you can get it for like anything, accountability, just performance. So online coaching is not just reserved for training and nutrition. It's like anything, you can do it online. So I feel like the world really had to adapt when COVID happened because people couldn't practice in person, so a lot of people did go online. And then, as you were saying, the laptop lifestyle, and like, why does everyone go to Bali? Like, it's so cliche. But if you're going to build anything, right? Like if you're going to build, sorry.
I laugh because in my head I'm like, I've got so many followers right now in Bali. Good on them.
Yeah, good on them. Have a break,
dream.
have a holiday. But it's a it's a break. You can have a working holiday, right? But where people like go wrong is they think that, they're doing that all over there, but they're just working on the job. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. They still that's their holiday. They're still working. Do you know what I mean? A lot of them can't actually take breaks. So I feel like social media popularized working online and being a business owner or an entrepreneur or a coach, popularized that. But then two, I think also COVID forced a lot of people to do it.
Totally agree. I mean, I had my online coaching for just sort of training and nutrition before I graduated as an osteopath. But then COVID was the turning point where I took literally even all my quote unquote osteotype rehab work. I just quit all hands on. And then moved into that online space. And I think, the goal was always to do it, but COVID was, it is what it is, but we have to count our blessings and look for the lights that came out of such a dark time. 100%. It really allowed people to value Zooms, even for meetings.
Well, we did the podcast at Skype. Zoom. We questioned whether we were going to continue the podcast because we were like, how can we podcast? Because we used to record with our lapel on a couch in my apartment. And I think COVID just forced a lot of people in lots of different industries to go online, right? Yes. And to move online and use technology.
Yeah, it was a blessing because, you and I always had the quality product to offer, but people always thought, I'll just see someone face to face. I'll just pop down to the local whatever for this service. But it was so great for us, the service providers, to then be able to really step up and show what we're capable of and to be able to reach people all over the world. Yeah. So that was a massive turning point, for our careers as well. But again, there's the positives and the negatives. So that's what we're going to share today. It's not all the glitz and glam. You and I do that so well. We just have the real talk about real scenarios, and that's what we're going to share today.
Yeah. And unfortunately, when everyone is forced to do something, you're going to get people enter a market for the wrong reason. And we see that all the time where people want to go into online coaching or have an online business or an e-commerce business because they want the lifestyle rather than the job. And like I've been a client of coaches that wanted that, and I feel like we've said this before, but you've got to earn the right to go online. And I feel like you have to do the reps in person first. No, you don't have to work on a gym floor for like 5 years and, you know, do 500 hours or whatever, but you have to like earn the right to be able to handle an online environment. And I say this from, I guess, experience building an online business, but then also knowing how hard it is in comparison to doing stuff in person. And I just even mean working in person. Like when I worked in person, even just as a nurse, you learn things in person, like communication wise and just working with people and dealing with people and managing people that you won't get in an online environment. And I feel like everyone, regardless of what you are doing, needs some ground level experience of just working in a job like not in an online environment to be able to learn those fundamental skills, because you just don't get that in an online environment. And that's where I feel like a lot of people go wrong, is they jump in too soon because they think it's better, but they don't have the foundational skills there with communication and just managing people to understand it.
You're very right, particularly when it comes to healthcare. You know, we need those different levels of communication with our clients and to be able to express what we want from them. So let's just say, you know, with what we do, we have had that groundwork to not only see how someone moves, because you're viewing their technique on a screen, certain angles. You can't just walk around and say, you know, put your knees out and touch them. It's all verbal. So it's
and it's in hindsight too, right? Like it's after. It's like, it's not in real time. So like you can't even, you actually got to be good at giving advice after and like, how are they going to remember it? You know, that's your job to make sure they remember it. Do you have systems? Do you have technology in place to make sure that that can happen?
Totally. So not only do you need those skills to be able to actually correct or give the advice, but then you have to communicate it in a way that lands with them, because, you know, when you were a midwife and when I was working in the gyms and even in cafes, you just learn how to talk to all kinds of people. And it's really important to be able to carry those skills into the online space, because people can misread it. You might miss out like that meme, let's eat grandma. But then it's like, if they put a comment, let's eat, grandma. Two totally different sentences, you know? Yep. And there's only so many smiley faces and emojis you can use to try and get your message across. I feel like communication is the biggest skill that you need when an online coach, whether you show up for your clients, but also setting the boundaries, because the messages will come in 24/7. And there's some days at the start when I started with online, I would miss just clocking on, clocking off. You know, instead of having just all the notifications 24/7.
Yeah, absolutely. Digital communication is like, I love learning about that as a topic, digital communication, because as you said, it influences so much of what we say, you know, and what we say or what people think we say accounts for like 80% of the message that's portrayed to the other person. So it's actually more about how you say it. And in an online space, that's going to be like your grammar, the emojis you do or don't use, as you mentioned with the the grandma meme there. But all of those things are going to dictate your message, right? And it's so important to know how to communicate digitally in an online space to make sure that you're building really good rapport, you're creating psychological safety, and you're also, you know, portraying trust to other people so that they can share and relay that back to you. And a lot of people do not think about that. And honestly, I didn't either. When I was getting into an online space, I didn't think, the first thing wasn't like, oh, well, how am I going to communicate digitally? It was like, oh, well, I better put my training programs on here. And like, I was so fixated on the what, being nutrition and training and education. I was so dictated on the what rather than the how. Like, how am I going to do this? Because I think in an online world as well, there's so many people that just can't copy paste, template everything. They do all that sort of stuff, but you need to know how to actually deliver your message. And that's something I see even in social media, right? Communication is so important, how you portray something. And yeah, a lot of people miss the mark on that.
Yeah. And I also think that when people go online, they become a psychologist, a nutritionist, a trainer, you know, they try and do everything and be everything for everyone, particularly now. And I still talk to a lot of like even our staff or just some trainers who want to step into that space, and they have such high pressure on themselves, but to the point where it's not good. Because having a little bit of pressure on yourself is good because, you know, it keeps your standards high and it keeps you hungry to strive for more. However, because it seems in our space that everyone is an online coach now, people think that they need to go above and beyond and have all the bells and whistles and the fanciest like programming and all of this stuff, where no, actually, because you need to find out what separates you amongst all of that noise. And, you know, you and I always talk about just find something that you're really good at and keep fine tuning that skill. You know, stay in your lane, of course, based on what you're qualified to do, but don't be everything for everyone. Find your thing and really just stick at that and become the expert. You know, expert is relative to everyone else, but become the expert in your thing rather than just being everything for everyone.
Yep. There's a quote by Simon Sinek, and it's, people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. And it's saying, like, again, a lot of people get so fixated in the training and the nutrition, they get so in the what, but they buy your why or how, you know, because when everyone's technically buying the same thing, training and nutrition or coaching, how you do what you do and why you do it are so important for you to stand out. And that's the backbone of brand, right? Like, you must have a strong brand, and everyone has a brand, whether you like it or not. Your personal brand is a brand. Your business brand is a brand. So those things, like, I can't even, if I could say one thing to anyone going online, like, obsess over your brand, obsess over it for the first couple of years, obsess over building a really strong brand. So by the time, you know, you come to market and you come out into the world and you say, this is what I do, it's actually not about the what. You don't really want it to be about the what. You know, you want it to be about something bigger, so people are attracted to it, because you never want to compete on price. And, you know, people are going to go down and find some coaching for $60, $70. And the thing about fitness is you get what you pay for. So if you go for cheap, you're going to get cheap, right? You're not going to get good quality. And people don't want that. They want good quality. So it's about not obsessing over the wrong things. And I think that's what a lot of people do in the online space, because it's easy to do. And like I said, that was definitely the way I started. But I'd love to hear, like, what your thoughts were on, like, the what, the versus how, the why, like, for someone getting into it.
I mean, you're right in a sense that people do obsess over the wrong thing. And I find that, yeah, you need your brand online. You need to be posting on social media, but people chase the followers, or they go straight away to having the best camera, the best setup. You know, we were talking to the guys who are in this studio, and people have their first podcast in, like, in a big studio.
I was like, I'd be so scared.
We took 3 years to do this for our own reasons. Not saying that everyone has to take 3 years, but I think people are going too hard too early, and then they burn out with consistency. Because once you set that benchmark, you have to ride that out, because people don't really notice an increase in the quality as much as they would notice a downgrade. Because, you know, people get too fancy, they get too fixated on the followers, and then consistency drops off. So I feel like consistency, you know, still good content, but it doesn't have to be so polished to the point where you do it once and never again, you know?
Yeah, what's the point?
What's the point? And you also mentioned, you know, obsess. You said obsess over your brand. But what does that actually mean? Like, what are the elements that they need to be obsessing over, do you think?
Your brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room. So what would people say about Danny? What would people say about Sherelle? What would they say about you when you're not there, right? The same as your business. What would people say about your business when you're not there? That's what brand is. People think brand is a logo, colours, a font. It's like, no one gives a shit. Brand, no one cares. No one even remembers, right? And, you know, I'm reminded of that all the time. But it's brand is what people say about who you are and what you do when you're not in the room. And you have to, like, be so consistent in everything that you do, from your messaging to your team's messaging, from what your clients say about your service or products. Everything has to be so consistent that that message penetrates and it's the same. Because as soon as there's mixed messaging with something, you lose your brand because it's like it's everywhere. People don't understand. And, you know, even in the online space, you know, people butcher their brands all the time because it's like 10% off this and then it's over there and here's my discount code and now I'm over here, and there's no consistency or trust or loyalty, you know. And a brand to me is really loyal. It's strong. It's like that's what you represent. That's who you are. It's your messaging. It's your why. So I don't know, like I love brands because I just feel like, where is it in the fitness industry? You see look at Nike. You know, I was at the DFO the other day and it was just out of control. The line was like around the corner.
Really?
And I was looking at their messaging as well. And it was like, you know, when you think of like 2XU or some of those other sports brands, and I think athlete performance, I used to think that about Nike. But when I was in the shop, I was looking around, I'm like, these are just everyday people. Like everyone's wearing Nike. And then on the wall, it was like, if you've got a body, you're an athlete. And I was just noticing how their branding was changing because obviously they want everyone to wear Nike. They don't just want, you know, marathon runners or true-born athletes to be wearing their brand. So your brand, like you can change it, but the messaging needs to be consistent and strong that you can do that, right? And that's just obviously Nike, it's like one of the top brands in the world. But like think of it like that, you know, like who's attracted? Who are your people? What are they doing? What are they doing when they're consuming or listening or whatever it might be? So that's what brand is. That's what brand is to me anyways.
I'm really interested with that. You say Nike, I say Nike. Now I don't know what's actually right. I'll keep saying Nike or Nike.
Yeah.
I wonder if they're expanding their niche or if their niche got confused, because that's really interesting, because we were just talking about, you know, find your thing. But I feel like that's the opposite effect. And obviously we're heading into a world that's more inclusive and blah, blah, blah. I understand all of that. However, I find that quite interesting. Did they sit down when they first created the brand perhaps and say, we only want, you know, people who play sport at a high level? Or did they sort of say, no, I want to cater for everyone, but then the messaging got lost? Because what was it? If you've got a body, you're an athlete. So I feel like they're just trying to say basically anyone can wear our stuff.
Yep. I think it's smart marketing. Yeah. Because I think all good brands start niched. All good brands start niched and then they expand. They expand the way they do it. And like, yes, when you're small, you should stay quite niched and own your niche and then, you know, broaden your niche and be able to expand outwards a little bit. And this is even like a good example for like even online coaches. It's like start really niche and hone in on what you do really well and then broaden that a little bit and a little bit more. And, you know, obviously you're going to keep your niche pretty relative, but for them, I just think it's a smart marketing move because look at the percentage of people that are athletes. Look at the percentage of people that are competitors in anything, right? Look at the percentage of people wearing activewear these days and even how that's changed, right? Like 10 years ago, you probably wouldn't have worn your Nike tights out for brunch, but you do these days. And that's just the way lifestyles sort of changed, that everyone's wearing activewear everywhere. So I just think it's smart marketing and I think as well, like people probably started to do that with the brand anyways, and then they sort of cottoned on to probably the opportunity and therefore they expanded it. And I just noticed it in the store because I was like, wow, their branding's really different. Even the mannequins, there was some mannequins that were like normal. You know how like a lot of them got six packs and stuff? Yeah. There was mannequins that were normal bodies. And I was like, I love that. Yeah. I love that because there is athletes that aren't shredded. You know, and that's sort of their messaging. It was all around like, you know, there is no finishing line when you're running your own race. It was all that sort of marketing and it just felt more inclusive. And I was like, I like it. You know, I think it's a good move. It's a good direction because, you know, even the new Barbie movie, I just think a lot of people are trying to, like widen a little bit and be more inclusive.
Yeah. And that's interesting. I mean, because these are multi-million dollar activewear companies or, you know, iPhone is a tangible object. But for us who are providing a service, to not get mixed up. Yes, you can have your niche, expand within your means, but if your expansion starts to dilute your niche, then just find someone else. Like, for example, if I was to ever just take on nutrition, I would actually work with a dietitian. Rather than me going back and doing that, then that'll distract me. So don't feel like just because all these companies are expanding, you know, that might mean hiring out. But I also wanted to make a point that, and I love when you said, you know, your brand is what people say when you're not in the room. Your brand isn't just you when you're on camera or if you're with a client. It is you when you're ordering a coffee or how you talk to the waiter. Because and I can't remember if I've told this story in here, but I'll tell it again. Once Paul and I were in the car just driving around, and there was someone in his work ute who was just speeding and cut us off and was driving
In
so...
his work, in their work ute, yeah.
Oh, sorry.
I was like, Paul has a work ute?
No, Paul doesn't have a work ute. Yeah, sorry. There was a person in their own work vehicle with their branding all over it, cutting us off. And we were just driving normal, but he obviously was in a mood and just wanted to get somewhere, driving very dangerously. First thing Paul did, went on his website, left a bad review.
Yep.
This person is the worst carpenter I've ever dealt with. Literally just made up this whole thing because he was wearing all of his logos, his uniform, and was acting poorly. So that is your brand on the road. In every scenario that you're in, it is your brand.
Yep, absolutely, absolutely. And I feel like product and service, it's still all brand as well, but especially for what we're talking about, if you've got a service and it's interactive, if you want to be good at that and known for that and build culture and brand, you have to be specific with who you're working with, right? Because even when we take on new clients, I can't help everyone. I'm not a jack of all trades. I can't help everyone. What we do is reserved for, a specific type of person that wants a specific type of thing. Do you know what I mean? We get people come to us that are probably more suited for in-person. Or maybe they need something else, or maybe they, we don't write out meal plans. So maybe they need something like that, So that's what it is when you're an online coach. You're really trying to find your people, and you're really trying to be specific with what you do rather than taking on everyone for anything. And I think as well, at the start, you've probably got to do that for a lot of people. You've probably got to get a feel, because I also don't think right from the start you pick your niche. I think your niche sort of finds you in terms of what you do and who you are and what you put into the world. You attract a sort of a type of person. And I experienced this right at the start of my coaching. I definitely got a lot of people for body composition and competing and just that sort of category, because that's exactly what I was doing. And that's another thing, you are your brand as well. What you put out in the world is what you're going to get back. So that was definitely my niche over then. And then when I went to the women's health movement, it's definitely changed as well. It sort of shifted a little bit, and we have women in their 40s and 50s. And I remember at the start I was like, that's old. Can I help them? And then when I was like, it's not now though. Do you know what I mean? Now that I'm working with them, I'm like, oh my God, these women are exactly they're better clients.
I can't wait to be 50 and deadlifting and be hot and
oh my God, these women are incredible. Do you know what I mean? And that was just my ignorance at the time in my, sort of mid-ish 20s.
Totally.
But yeah, that's just an example of your niche can change based on your branding and how you position yourself in the market. Everything from your brand name to the way you portray yourself to what you do as a person. And I think that's pretty important for coaches, because even a lot of people compete for business, and I'm probably not the best business move. Are you a comp prep coach? Because a lot of people are yeah, I don't actually prep clients though. And it's okay, maybe be clear on what you're doing then, because know that you're going to attract that in return.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. And I remember when, you and I started our fitness page sort of similar times, just for our first comp, just to have a diary of what we were doing. And then I got into the hands-on space, but I was still posting training and fitness things and all of that. And it was a light bulb moment for me where, I was getting messages and people so what do you actually do? Are you hands-on, or do you do exercise?
Manual therapy, hands-on.
Hands-on, manual therapy.
Yep.
On a practitioner table. Or do you do exercise? And then I realized, okay.
People don't know.
People don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I'm not... Because it wasn't my passion at the end of the day. I didn't want to post, and this is no shade on anyone who does this, because I freaking love manual therapy and all of that, but I just didn't want to post myself doing the manual treatment. So that sort of allowed me, as you said, your niche kind of finds you. I sort of worked out, hang on, why is this something that I'm not putting out there? Why am I really just drawn to posting my training and talking about exercise rehab and all of that? And then I realized, and then with the help of lockdown, sort of closed that chapter and just continued on the way. So for people starting, yes, hone in on what you're good at, but allow it to sort of take you on the journey. And there are little clues based on how you're feeling and what you want to put out there and what people come to you for as well that will really guide you. It's not about having your shit together from day one.
Yep.
You just have to start.
Yep.
You know?
Yeah, figure it out along the way.
Figure it out.
One thing I see a lot though that I feel like a lot of people need to hear this is if you're an online coach, like you should be investing in your own self, in your own personal development, in your own education. And I always find it hard to fathom that people could be online coaches without having had online coaching. And I know that's like a very prevalent thing, but I feel like that's so important, and a lot of people skip that step. Like, you need to know what it feels like to be a client, and you also need to be investing yourself so that you can get better at your practice and really, like, you know, learn the latest, but then also, like I said, be a client. And I just see that a lot, where a lot of online coaches are investing in business coaches, but they're not investing in their own training and nutrition. And it's like, that's the skill of what you do, right? Like, yes, you need business skills, but like, don't go out and get a business coach or a social media coach if like you're a shit coach. You know, invest in yourself. Like, I know that can be harsh, but if you're not inspiring other people and other people don't look at you and be like, wow, you're an incredible coach and you're really good at what you do and you can get clients results, you have a strong brand and you practice what you preach. Like, if you don't have those pieces, stop spending your money on coaches that are going to promise that they can scale your business. You shouldn't scale something shit. More people are going to see it. Like, that's the reality, right? Because I see a lot of people and they're like uploading their training and all of that. And I'm like, damn, like, you need some in-person help. You know, as like an online coach, you know, you need to work on your technique. Or like, you know, your programming, that doesn't make sense. Do you know what I mean? So I feel like, again, it's foundational steps that people just jump into the online space. And I'm like, you skipped A, B, C, D, E, and then went straight to F and went into the online space. And you're wondering why you're not retaining your clients, you're not getting clients results, and you're not attracting new people. You know, and that's a very, I know that can be hard for people to hear, but it's like, if you're not retaining your clients, you're not getting new ones, you're not attracting them, like, it's probably the way in which you're doing something. It's got nothing to do with your business model, you know? And that's just a very common thing, because if you were on a gym floor, you'd get told that straight away, right? Someone around you would see it and probably correct you. But in online space and in business, no one's going to do that. People are just going to leave without telling you why.
Because half the time, you can be a quote-unquote online coach and you haven't even done your Cert 3 or 4.
Yep.
You could walk off the street right now.
But you don't even learn anything in that anyways. Do you know what I mean? Like, yes, you need legal reasons, but like, you can get that out of a cereal box these days.
Yeah, I got mine out of Cocoa Bombs. I know what you mean, but you know, people haven't even tried to learn.
Yeah,
they just
it's the work ethic piece.
Turn on Instagram, click edit profile, type online coach, save. That's the 1 second certification. So yeah, you know, do the groundwork at least to a point where you're confident enough to then put yourself online, because you've got incredible people in that field who aren't posting on social media. But if you wish to be the best online version of yourself, you do need to have a baseline level of social media skill, because the thing is, that's where they're going to find you. You know, if you were working and relied on walk-ins and people walking by for your business, different story, but you're online. The world is your platform. You can literally get anyone from the world, but they have to find you. The mistake that I see, people just become content creators and they actually forget about their business. You know, because being a content creator and being a coach or a health professional are two different jobs. You know, we didn't go to uni to learn Instagram or TikTok or how to work a camera or a micro, how to set up your Rode mics. We learned our skills. And you see, you know, all the Pivotal Conversations mics that we're using. Oops, wrong shout out. But people get distracted by the bells and whistles. They're so good online, but as you said, their business model is poor. They haven't set up how to actually take in a client or how to deal with, you know, multiple clients. They sort of have 5 or so clients and have a bit more time for online, because getting the followers is addictive, and the validation and the comments on your posts about how amazing you are. People get sucked into that, but that doesn't pay the bills. There are a lot of broke TikTokers who still work, you know, doing their normal job. So don't get lost in the content creation side of it. You know, you have to make sure your business is rock solid, and then get into that space, because there's no point getting all the traffic and leads from your amazing content into a dead end.
Yep.
As you said, there's not going to be any retention. Bad word of mouth spreads like a wildfire. You know, people are so quick to talk when they're not happy about you. So yeah, don't get mixed up in the bells and whistles. Get your foundations of your business first, and then spend some time on social media.
Yep. Building a following, building a business, and building a body, or like being a coach.
Yeah, good. What's that?
I don't know,
Good
3
catchphrase.
They all require completely different skill sets.
Yes.
And a lot of people think it's, you know, oh, well, if you have a lot of followers or if you have a following, you can have a good business. It does not work like that. As you mentioned, there's a lot of people that are incredible at their craft that aren't even on Instagram, and their books are full, you know, because they obsessed over the right thing. They're good at what they do. You know, they're really incredible coaches, and therefore they get away with a lot more. It doesn't matter if they don't have a following, right? Whereas, yes, like I do obviously think that having a social media presence and, again, your brand, all those things are super important for all businesses. But at the start, like, you just need to work on being incredibly good at what you do and making sure that you are a good coach. Because like you said, you know, people just obsess over the followers and they're neglecting their clients. And my pet peeve, I see this all the time, and it just grinds my gears. And I can't fathom why coaches get on their stories and communicate with their clients, where they'll be like, all email inquiries will be responded to by tomorrow. It's like, why are you doing that? Ugh. It's like, seriously, the biggest ick. Like, don't do that.
How many inquiries would they really have?
Far out. It's like, guys, I've been away all weekend. Like, I'll do your check-ins tomorrow. Thank you so much for your patience. It's like poor
Message
business.
your clients,
Poor
yeah.
business. Like, poor business. Like, how many do you have? Can you not send them a message in the app that you use? I don't know. Do you know what I mean? Like, common sense ain't common sometimes. But just don't do those things. Think about what the receiver, your client, thinks. They're thinking, oh, followers are going to think that this looks great, because it looks like I've got a lot going on. I'm really busy and I have a lot of clients and a lot of messages and stuff. Client, if I'm a client, I'm like, well, I ain't going to her. She's way too busy for me.
Yes.
Right? And people, like, unfortunately, people see status and they go, I want that person, they're going to fix my problems. They see that, and look, status makes the world go round, but it's a bad business move, because people want coaches. They want someone that's got time for them. They want someone that cares for them. They don't want someone they don't care how many followers you have at the end of the day. Maybe it'll get you the lead, but it won't keep you the client.
Yeah, if I hear someone's working with thousands and thousands of people at a time, you know, it's great that they've been able to transform that many lives and blah, blah,
Yeah,
blah, whatever marketing.
Puts me
But
off.
I'm like, my ultimate goal would be to work one-on-one with someone,
Yep.
to be honest. Like, it might sound, you might think it sounds good from your end, but as a client, they just want a great service and they want your time. That's what they're paying for. But then you also get the whole other extreme of the pendulum. You know, you obviously get coaches who neglect their clients because they're too busy dancing around on social media. But then it's the whole other way where they become like, you know, so close with their clients that all boundaries are removed. Particularly that first client. We all remember our first client, and you just move mountains for them. But then I learned very quickly that that is not good, because when you take on your first client, you have to pretend that you've got, you know, 20, 30, 40 clients and give them the same treatment, because you might have the time to get on a Zoom call with your client individually, or even a phone call check-in. People still do that stuff. But then, you know, your business is going to grow. Can you get on the phone with 50 people a week, you know, and have a 45-minute chat? No, you can't. You know, are you going to be up till midnight replying to things? No. So you need to set your boundaries immediately, you know, be clear. And there's no problem with that. And even from the receiving end, for me, if I'm working with someone, they'll say, yep, you know, turnaround time will be roughly this time. Or, you know, I even say to my clients, yep, you'll get your technique between this time frame, check-ins on this day. I don't log on to messages on Sundays. I'm very clear with my boundaries at the start, as you are as well. And they respect that. There's nothing worse than being told something and then it's not fulfilled, because then you lose trust and vice versa. So set your boundaries, and again, don't be everything for everyone, particularly if they're paying you, you know, your entry-level wages. Some people, $50 a week people charge, which $50 is, you know, again, it's all relative, But if you're doing training, nutrition, you're on the phone with them, they're in your Instagram, they're in your WhatsApp, they're on the platform. Fucking hell.
They're in your house.
They're in your house. You're cooking them dinner all of a sudden. Hang on a minute. It's not worth your time and money, guys. Like, set your boundaries.
Yeah, absolutely. So important to do, right? And if you're like over attaching to your clients, providing everything above and beyond, doing, responding at, ridiculous hours and just doing everything that you can, what are you compensating for? You know what I mean? Like, what aren't you meeting the needs on? Because if you're doing what you say, and most people don't want you to, what's the word? Like, most people just want you to meet their expectations. They don't want you to go above and beyond. They just want you to meet their expectations. A lot of the time in the online coaching space, expectations aren't even met.
Yes.
I speak with a lot of clients that come to us that are like, oh yeah, I had one program for 12 weeks and I just don't know if that's right. And you're like, no changes. Nah. So there's just certain things that you're like, it's a saturated industry, but there's a lot of people doing it not very well. So if you come in, you meet expectations, you stick to boundaries, and you do all the things, you can be really successful. It's just that you've got to be consistent and you've got to put in the groundwork, and you've also got to invest in yourself. And if you're getting into online coaching for the money, you won't last. Do you know what I mean? You have to do it for more than the money. There has to be other reasons as to why you do it. Hey guys, if you're enjoying the episode, please share it with a friend or share it on your socials, and don't forget to tag us.
The money will come, but that person who didn't change the program in 12 weeks, if they were super clear, this is...
Yeah, if you brought the program.
This is, because you don't know, because sometimes they come to and their expectations are too high as well.
That's right, their expectations weren't
Maybe
set.
they bought a $20 online program, you don't know,
right.
but if that coach, to cover themselves, they could have... And even I have to do it on the phone. You explain, you don't justify your methods, because people know we've set our brand now quite strong and we're very confident in what we do. We don't need to explain ourselves to beg for the client to join. We just educate them on our methods and why we think that XYZ is good for them right now. And you have to sort of crack the whip at the start and say, I understand this is your problem. This is what I feel like can help. And this is my process. You're going to have to do this, maybe every day for some rehab and things like that. So they actually know what it takes. And you say, yep, your program will change roughly in this time frame based on these factors. If you miss a whole week or 2 weeks because you're away, you're not going to get a new program after 1 week. Things like that. So just be so clear in your initial communication, and there can't be a problem.
Yeah.
But I still had sort of one person recently, and they're like, you know what? Actually, I don't think I'm ready to do that work. And that's fine.
Yep.
They can go, do the other style of training. And I love when we have those conversations at the start, because taking on the wrong client is so much worse than not having a client at all.
Yeah.
I've been in situations at the start where you kind of just take people on. You're not, you're still trialing it out. And I go, wow, I would actually pay you to not work with me anymore. I would pay you every week to not talk to me again.
They cost you more money and time. Yeah. People that pay the least expect the most too.
Totally.
And the other way around as well. But, there is a right coach for everyone. And something like what you were just sharing there, Danny, is when people are always coming from previous coaching experiences, and they tell me about, there's always two sides to every story, and I just get curious a little bit about to make sure that we're going to meet their expectations of what they feel like they need to. I think that's really important. I always ask what do you feel like, what was missed, or what do you feel like was lacking in that area? Why weren't you happy, essentially? And then when they share that, I'll always ask, do you mind me asking, what was the investment? What was the cost of the coaching? And if they say something like, $40, $50 a week or whatever, I'm like, well, what do you expect?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You get what you pay for. So, you're not going to go in and spend $10 and expect, a really luxe service, unless, of course, the opposite person set the expectation, was no, this is what I do, then that's just bad practice. But you have to be for clients, you have to be realistic for what you're asking. You go to the hairdressers, you pay a couple $100 for someone's time and product and service. It's not going to be any different just because it's online. You're paying for an outcome. You're paying for a result, not the time that they spend on you, essentially. So yeah, it's always really important, for coaches listening, to be so clear on your expectations and set them firmly. Don't feel like you can say things once and people will remember. And when I say expectations, it's just things like what you said, Danny, like I'm offline on a Sunday, I'll respond by this time, check in on a Sunday, technique reviews here, blah, 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 cancel calls if you're not coming, whatever it is, like expectations. And as soon as those expectations aren't met, or on both ends, it has to be acknowledged and reset so that there's no confusion and you don't get clients leaving and then, bad-mouthing your brand to someone else because expectations weren't met on their end, but really they were just never set to begin with.
Yes. And I think another one is to just set a limit on your clients because, I'm sure as the business grows, the marketing's amazing and the leads can be coming in. Just one more, and you start doing the maths and it sounds all good, on your calculator for your weekly income, but then fast forward into real time actually having too many clients and it is a nightmare. Your quality of life just goes down the drain, your quality of service just goes down the drain, and then people leave. So taking on too many clients is not good either. And it doesn't happen by surprise. You can feel when it's slowly becoming too much. You don't just wake up and have 20 extra clients by accident. One or two, it can tip over the edge, I feel. So that's another big one.
What do you notice for you, like if not even just client load but workloads getting too much? Like what do you notice for you? What's the first red flags?
Like if I've taken on too much, I think, look, I'm going to be that. I haven't been in that position in a while because I feel like I've really fine-tuned my routine over the years to what I want. It starts by me losing my free time. I haven't tipped it over the edge to where the quality of my work. Like if I say I'm going to get someone something, I bloody well do, no matter what the circumstance is, and that's my high standards. But
I vouch for that. I'm like, Danny says something, she does it.
That's just such a strong value. So I haven't been to the point where I've not delivered the deliverables and things like that intentionally, but I've created a buffer in a sense. So the first thing I notice is I have less free time. And then all of a sudden on the weekends, I'm spending more time. It's creeping into dinner time on a Saturday and I'm like, I was a little bit behind on that. But in the past, I would be staying up late, getting up really early. I might skip a gym session or two, spend a lot more time sitting down, then my body starts to hurt. It was more physical back then, but now I feel like my personal time and space buffers just close in a little bit, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And that comes down to as well, like for coaches, like track your time that you're working. And this is completely hand on my heart, something I did not do for a very long time until Luke came into the business. And, he is like such an operator and like a process man, but he introduced like Toggle, which is just what we use internally where we, like all of us, everyone on the team logs what they do, or like when they're toggling certain projects. And, like every now and then I'll need a reminder because I'm like a little bit slack. Because, when you're like, it's your business and you just do things all the time, you forget, oh my God, the damn play button.
Does he catch you out on that?
Oh, yeah, all the time.
Good on him.
Pull me up. Like, lead by example. I'm like, you're right. You're so right. So, and like sometimes I'd be like, heck, no wonder I'm exhausted this week. If you're toggling for like 50, 60 something hours, you're like, it's been a massive week. And I actually got to see like with like toggling, if I had a massive week, like, for me, like as well, because I feel like anything in the 50+ hour mark on your computer is a lot, because when you think about it, Danny, I don't toggle when I'm on my phone posting, or that's still work. Like you're always working, but physically behind a screen, I feel like once you're getting into the 50-hour mark, like, man, you're burning. You're really starting to burn. And when I've had a couple, like especially with the app launch and stuff like that, couple of like consecutive 50 weeks behind a screen, it would be followed by like so much, I guess, improductivity and just feeling tired, drained, a couple of 20-hour weeks, like just struggling, and you can see it really average out. And being able to do that, I'm like, yeah, man, I can burn myself, but then look at the collapse that happens after it. Look at the quality of work, look at my energy levels, look at, it's like you got to work more hours to get the same output done or get the same amount of energy or work there. So I feel like being able to really audit what you do best and how much you can work and how much you can function, to see trends, to make sure that you can set strong boundaries and be really clear with those things. And yes, know that you can burn the candle at both ends when it comes to it, because we all have to. That's just part of it. You've got to learn to grind when the time comes.
Totally.
But you also have to learn to rest, and you have to invest in rest, and you have to pull back and make sure that you can fill up your cup, because it's not about the amount of hours that you do. It's about the amount of work or the amount of productivity that you can do with that hours, rather than just being busy all of the time.
And that very much is the reality. And, you know, you went from being a midwife to working online. I went from hands-on manual therapy or being on the gym floor to going online. And then all of a sudden, I noticed that, you know, you become less active. You do less steps in a day. Your training suffers. Doing a comp prep, being sedentary, it's so much harder. You notice all of these things in yourself. As I said, your body feels different. Not only, you know, you might get some little aches and pains from sitting on the computer if you're not disciplined with your movement, but then also in terms of body composition as well.
It is harder,
mentally,
so much harder.
And your eyes are straining. And so there are so many physical implications of staring at a screen. Like, you need to nail the times in which you're on the screen, your actual setup as well. Don't just be hunched over a mini laptop or a tiny little iPad. I have big screens.
Yeah.
I laugh, and even when I moved to the beach for the first time out of home and started being online, I would post those, you know, my laptop and then the beach is in the background and all that stuff. I was young and excited. Had fun, but then, you know, 30 minutes later, the screen went black. It's overheated type thing. Like, all the realities were
That's what I mean.
kicking
Like, I'm
in.
so inefficient when I've got to work away from, like, I have like a studio set up where I work. I'm so productive in there. It's my environment. It's where I get shit done. But like, when I travel, and like, it's part of work, you know, if you're online, there is often a little bit of travel. But like, I am by no means pretending like I'm building the worth of my company online while I'm at a cafe. I'm not. I'm chipping away and doing low output tasks like emails and message responses that don't build anything, to be honest. Like, the real work is done when you're deep in thought, when you're doing active deep work. And that just ain't at the beach or at a cafe. And people don't realize that, because being busy and being productive are two different things, right? Like, so many people are just busy all of the time. They're just so busy. And you're like, geez, they're really busy. And a lot of people attach that to successful, but it's not, because busy and productivity are two separate things.
Yeah, you do see those extremes, but, you know, dare I say, the people that are showing that they're online coaches, but they're always on a holiday, they're always at a cafe, at the beach. And I'm talking like, we're all entitled for time off. And
100%.
I love
Have a
doing
holiday,
emails at a cafe and all that, and that's fine. But the ones that are claiming that going online has allowed them to have, you know, the physique of their dreams, and they're always out walking their dog, or they're on holiday, it's bullshit. They're not busy. No. They are not busy.
Well, they're not productive. They might be busy.
Well, or what's the quality of their business?
That's what I mean.
You just can't. You know, you need to be on your computer glued there, not prancing around on holidays and all that 24/7, you know what I mean? It's not realistic, but that was the dream that I was sold. I thought that's what it was. And then I started, I'm like, oh God, all right,
it's not
here
the
we
reality. I feel like nothing is ever as good as what it's made out to be.
Totally.
Like, everything in the world. Like, if you think it's amazing, it's not. You know, and this goes for anything, you know, when you can look at someone, you're like, they're crushing it. It's like, you look under the hood of their business, or you look at their personal life and you're like, oh, wow, you know, they're really struggling. And I think that's just, it's important to acknowledge that there's good and bad in everything. But if you're always just sold the perfect lifestyle for a lot of different things, you're going to be disappointed. And I think in the online space, even like, I think it was last year, year before, I did like a Coach the Coaches sort of internal mentorship. And, you know, we had like a few online coaches in there, quite a few online coaches. And, you know, the main thing that come up was like loneliness. It's like, if you're in a business on your own, it's really lonely. You're online, you know, no one to talk to. Even online coaching, it's like, you're not just really communicating with your clients all the time, you're usually doing the work behind the scenes. And I would really struggle if I just had my own thing all on my own. Like, I get so much satisfaction out of having a team, being able to work with my partner, like even just like creating content with Becky. Like, I love collaboration, podcasts with you. I'm like, now that I think about it, I do everything in collaboration because I just feel like that's a big part of me. It's just being able, like, what's the point of climbing the mountain if you're just there on your own and just celebrating? Like, it's so much better when you can celebrate and have wins with other people rather than doing it in silence. And I feel like that's really what online coaching is at the start. It's lonely. You're just doing it on your own. You have connection with clients, but you just have to be mindful of those things that no one talks about.
Nothing beats going back to our primal instincts of eye contact, human touch, energy.
Love a good hug.
Love a good hug. I know, like, we weren't made to be staring at a screen pretending to talk to people. You know, I mean, it's fantastic. And yes, we can connect with people all over the world, but from a physiological standpoint, you can have hundreds and even thousands of clients but still feel lonely just because it doesn't fulfill the needs that us as humans have.
Even followers, right? Like, they're not, like, I try to be like, yeah, they're real people. But like, until I'm having a conversation with you, it is hard to attach it from just being a number.
Well, you could fill the MCG with your followers. Imagine just, you know, showing them a story that you did in the gym, like hundreds of thousands of people. Imagine actually.
Try not to think about it.
Yeah, that's what I mean. But you don't think like that.
No, you don't.
And even if you did, doing it still doesn't feel the same as you standing in the middle of the MCG on a microphone. Imagine how different it would feel, right?
I feel like that human need of connection is only met by being intimate with those people. Like, followers,
being intimate with
like
everyone.
The level of intimacy.
Careful.
On the couch.
Wait, what do you do
like,
online?
On the couch. Hey, spicy link. But like, being here and now with you, right? It fills that void because I can see you, I can hear you, I could come over there and touch you if I wanted to.
Do it, baby.
But like a follower, there's no level of connection because there's so much distance between that. So it doesn't feel like anything, to be honest. Like, I don't think that that's bad. I think that's we should know that. We should feel that. We should know that that's not real life. It's not. You still have to get out in the real world and like meet people and be able to communicate and you know, have friends and laugh and be able to feel emotion in real time and not glued to a screen, right? And online coaching in the online space allows us to, you know, it gives us so much friggin' flexibility and scalability and enjoyment, and you can really customize everything exactly how you want to do it. Like, being online is incredible. It has so many perks, but doesn't come without half of the shit too. And I feel like those first 2 to 3 years, if you're really setting up a really strong online coaching business, and I'm still in that, if you're trying to set up a really strong like company or whatever, rather than just doing the things, you're actually trying to like set it all up, there's going to be a couple of years of just true grind of, you know, 50-hour weeks of like lots of screen time, of like boring shit, of like missed training sessions. There's going to be all of that. But as long as you know that like during that setup process, you're going to experience that. And then afterwards, you know, you can pull back a little bit, have a bit more sustainability. Maybe I'm not there. But, you know, you can see that runway. It's not always going to be like that, but you have to know that it will be like that at the start. And I feel like a lot of people don't talk about that. It's like the people showing this second stage, maybe they're at that. Maybe they're chapter 7 and you're chapter 1. So you've got to, you know, be okay with what the reality does look like.
Oh, yeah. And we mentioned setting up the expectations and boundaries with your clients as if you already started with 50.
Yeah.
But set up your like actual systems, your accounting software, or get the accountant. We've spoken about this before, but we've been burned by, you know, having business and not being registered as a company initially. You know, the amount of tax you have to pay as a sole trader is ridiculous if your company grows really quick. So set up all your software, your booking systems, like where are you going to, what platform are you going to use to give out your programs or your nutrition and your check-in? Like, get all of that set up and know that, you know, if you're using someone else's company, there's going to be monthly bills, you know, using True Coach when, you know, I'm still on it and you were on it before Sherelle just decided to make her own one, you know, we both did eventually. We're like, hang on a minute, we're giving so much money to these external companies. You know, it all adds up because people think, oh, it's just my computer. I just pay for my electricity bill and all that and that'll cover it. No, there are still overheads as well. So just ask questions if you're unsure on actually setting it up. Just get help from someone and before you choose to scale. make sure that what you're driving people to is rock solid, because it's still a business. You're still going to pay tax, and you're still going to have to set all of that up. So that was definitely, I wouldn't say mistake. I mean, I just didn't think I was going to grow that quick. Like the work ethic was there, but the online space was a little bit more unknown.
Yeah.
So I had no idea how quickly it was all going to grow, particularly moving from a lot of hands-on work to that I, yes, was kind of taking on people as I was growing, and that's fine. But I think there are a few loose ends that I wish I learnt regarding accounting and having a bookkeeper or someone to just organize all of the things that were coming in and out. So that's what the only thing I would do differently, just get everything really rock solid before I scaled.
Yeah. Why do you feel like that was a mistake? Like, what do you wish that you had done differently in that incident?
Good question. I mean, hindsight's always so much easier, but again, the online space was so, like, people were still doing it, but I didn't know who to ask. And I was sort of just making it up as I was going as well. I had an amazing online coach in the past, but I wasn't, having the exact blueprint of their business model. I wanted to do my own thing. So I actually didn't know who to ask, because initially, yes, ask for help back then. I feel like now there's a lot more people you can ask for help for with that stuff. But even you and I were talking just before this, sometimes it's hard to even explain to accountants what we do.
Yeah.
They don't understand that you can deliver all of these amazing services online, and they're confused. Are you charging GST? Are you not? Is it counted as this? Is it automatic? Is it a personal service? There are so many different criterias that I feel when it comes to the ATO and all of that, it hasn't actually been created in their systems. Yeah. So they have to try and categorize what we're doing where, it's impossible, because your business is so unique to mine, to the next person's, that people who are trying to help really struggle if you don't actually know. So get super clear on what it is what you're doing, and get confident that you might actually be talking to people in a senior role who have no idea what you're doing. So I had to steer the ship in a sense, until I could find someone. I still look for people who understand what it is that I'm doing and how I'm growing. So it's still a battle that I deal with now.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the whole accounting piece, honestly, like I openly be like, that is not my forte in the business. But I think, like, when you're starting out, you have to wear all the hats, and I definitely did at the start. You have to learn how to do everything. You got to learn it, like you said. You got to know, like, finances, you've got to know your basic accounting, you've got to know software, you've got to know what you do, so that if you do outsource it, you can tell your bookkeeper and you can tell your accountant and you can sort of direct the ship. No, you don't have to be an expert at it, but you have to understand basic terminology and language. And that was not a strength of mine, but I had to learn it. I had to go out and be like, okay. And, I was lucky, like, my parents are in business, and, they've always been in businesses, so, like, I could ask them, but it's still not the same, like, what they do and versus what I do. Like, it's so different. But some of the basic stuff, like, your margins and your profits and your taxes and and what's claimable and all those sort of things, like, that's just basic knowledge. So you have to understand that, and then you scaffold on top of it as well. Like, you build on top of it. Once you learn certain things, you're like, oh, okay, I see how that applies over there. And that was, like, really overwhelming for me at the start. I was like, God, I just have, like, and when it's a lot of money, you're like, oh, I don't want to make a mistake, because the repercussions are big for if you make mistakes in, like, the financial side of things. So I feel like for anyone that's just starting, like, you've got to recognize that if you're entering the online coaching space, you're essentially becoming a business owner. And I would actually argue you're better off, like, not functioning at your full coaching capacity, so that you can make sure that you're putting time and energy into the business side of things. Keeping your accounting up to date, keeping your books, like, collecting everything, thinking about the future, making systems and processes and looking at better ways of doing things, so that, you can scale in the right way, and scale is going to look different for everyone. But there's a famous quote, and it's fancy fails, simple scales, right? Like, fancy
what was that?
Fancy fails, simple scales. So, like, a lot of people just, all the bells and whistles, like you said, all the packages, all the shit, they do everything for everyone. It's like everything. And then not only that, but they're on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Snapchat, like, they're on everything. They're doing so much, and fancy fails. You won't sustain it. And for me, like, I've been wanting to get into the YouTube space for so long, but it's like, if I can't sustain it and be consistent with it, I'm not starting it. I refuse to. That's like a piece of me being like, I refuse to start something and not be able to follow through simply because I can't. Not because it's not working, but because I can't, time commitment wise and quality wise. So, you know, and that was a big part of this as well. It's like, if we can't continue the way we want to, you shouldn't have started it. You know, you have to think about sustainability, and that's different to like changing paths, but like just be mindful of adding, because I feel like that's what people do. It's like the better you get in business, personally, professionally, the more opportunities come your way. And it's less about what you say yes to and more about what you say no to. You have to say no to new things so that you can keep the simple and scale it in the way that you want to. And like I said, scaling can be going from 10 to 20 clients or 20 to 30 clients. You know, scaling looks different for everyone. It's essentially just growing and finding what your maintenance is.
And you're good at that, and I feel like you've had to remind me a lot of times, you know, and you've said it before, keep the main thing. Because, yeah, you've just nailed it somehow. I don't know, did you learn that the hard way, or just because you know how you and I get very excited about things and passionate and driven, like how did you rein in to be so good at keeping the main thing?
Honestly, I think it's my perfectionism parts that are like, if I can't keep it perfect, if I can't do it well, if I can't keep it consistent, why start?
Yeah.
Because I just feel like, and I've had experiences in the past where like I couldn't sustain things and I just felt like, fuck, now I can't do it and it's my own fault. So like I've definitely learned like lots of little things. I wouldn't say anything major, but I've definitely learned that in order to have quality and then quantity, you must master quality. Right? And then you've also got to be consistent for a long time. And I just know the reality, to do anything well, you have to be in it for decades. You have to be in it for a really long period of time. So if I'm like, if I can't be doing this in 5 to 10 years' time, I'm not starting it. I'm just not. There's no point. What's the point? It's just going to rob me of my future success. So I think you have to, whenever you've got like a clear vision and you really want to be successful, you have to be okay with saying no. You know, and I like to, because I'm such a yes person, and Luke's like the no part of my brain that's now sort of like permeated in there. Yeah. But like now I say no and convince myself yes. And if I can convince myself yes, I'm in. Yeah. Right? But I'm like, no. Think about it, come back to it. Do I have time in my week to consistently put the work in? Because at the start, when you start anything, there's like a lot of work at the start for a little gain. It's like setting up the podcast. A lot of work, first episode, you're like, fuck. but then it's all that work. And, you know, the same with like whenever you bring on a new staff member, a lot of work training. No reward at the start. You're paying them to learn, right? A lot of work at the start, little gain. Starting a business, hell of a lot of work. People don't do that. They go here and they wonder why year 3, 4, 5 things are falling apart. Yeah. Well, their business is going backwards. They don't have a brand, or no one's staying. They can't keep their clients. Like, you have to be willing to do that in everything. Yeah. So that's why I just like to make sure that, like, realistically, I can just do it.
And that's so good. I mean, I think what I've learned over the past 2 years, like my immediate clients, the ones that I work with, only me, not in collaboration, it's always the number one priority. Yeah. So that's always good. But then, you know, we had the gym, the app that we still haven't launched, you know, United Health, all the stuff I'm doing there. I took on a lot, which in theory sounded great. Except my biggest learning curve, I'm never going to say mistake, is allowing buffer room for deadlines to not be met by people, or something random might pop up that you didn't account for. At the gym, for example, we got new neighbours coming in. They thought our deadlift platforms were too loud, so now we have to add that in. Time, money, energy. I just didn't allow things to pop up. And again, it sounds great taking on these things, and we thought, we're going to nail this. Of course, it's going to be hard and challenging, but it has really slowed things down. You know, we're making progress, but it is slower across the board, and it is what it is. It's great. They all go hand in hand. However, if we only just focused on the gym, for example, then that would be done, and we won't feel the effects of how that's affecting the app, and you know, all of these things. So I'm really feeling the flow-on effects from taking on a lot, but then just not allowing buffer room. That is my big. If someone says, "Yep, this will be ready by this date. Give yourself at least an extra 4 weeks either side just to see what happens while you're going along your daily business. Like just to at least allow that space, because it's been quite hectic.
Yeah. Well, whenever you look at anyone like really successful, like the top, they do one thing really well. Have one brand. They just don't have multiple different things unless they're like, 60, 70 and they're just investors and they don't do anything in those companies.
Well, they have massive teams.
Yeah, they have massive teams. They've outsourced, because really, like when you look at like your leverage, you only have your time. So you have to essentially let other people do all those pieces too. So yeah, I definitely resonate. And I think anyone like, in the online coaching space, and I've experienced this too, because I had the coaching and then couldn't meet that demand. So started Train with Sherelle, and that was the start of the app, right? And then this is before the women's health movement, which was sort of like the hub now for them both. But like building both at the same time has been like and that's the reality. Like like you said, progress might be there, but if you've got 3 or 4, 5 different programs going on, you're just never going to refine. We do one type of coaching. It would be so easy for me to go, we do nutrition, training only, mindset only. It'd be so easy for us just to make different packages, but I'm like, no, we nail this type of coaching. We know it works. I know it's premium. I know it's good. I know it's effective. I know the clients love it. And I'm not going to dilute what we do and create other packages and stuff for the sake of what? I'd just rather nail this and then get that right, because it's taken us years. And so many people just release new things all the time. And it's like, you're never going to master your craft. You're never going to be really good. And you're never going to be an industry leader in that thing for that niche. Like if you want people to think of whatever it is you do, or the thing that you offer, and think of you. You want that. And in order to do that, you just have to like really hone in on the product or the service. And like you said, when you've got other distractions, and I've felt this with the app too, right? App coaching. And I've accepted that. I'm like, I'm diversifying in my business. Essentially, I don't regret anything. But it's just taken what, done in a couple of years. I could have done that if I'd focused on one at a time, maybe a bit quicker. But like these are always things in hindsight. And look, quick is not always better either, I will say that. But in hindsight, I just feel like it's always best to put your energy all in one basket, so that you're not, like your thoughts aren't scattered elsewhere, because you've only got so much time in the day.
Exactly right. But then, you don't know. You can predict and make educated guesses of what's going to happen, but sometimes you just have zero.
And no one tells you. No one's there being like, here you go. Oh, you should do it this way. It's always in hindsight.
And that's what I notice with a lot of clients who are starting as well. They have the services that they want to offer, but then they might get a client that says, can I pay less if I only do a check-in once a month? Or they try and mold your business model. That's why like my business model for my coaching didn't and hasn't suffered during the other projects like the gym and all that, because I'm so clear on like you. So clear on what we do. Like if someone wants something that's different to what I offer, I say no.
Yeah.
Because the time and energy and money it would take, or opportunity costs it would take to mold to what they want, it's not worth it. And I don't want to dilute my service and do monthly check-ins instead of weekly just so I can get a little bit of money from them. It's not about the money. It's about, I think weekly check-ins for what I offer is the best. So that's what people need to do too. You will be saying no, as to go back to what you're saying, you'll be saying no a lot of the time, whether it be to an opportunity altogether, or on the micro level, whether it be just making changes within your business, not worth it. Be really clear on everything.
Yeah, absolutely. Be clear on what you do. And, something I like to say is like, I definitely have those conversations too, but I do things a certain way for a reason, and this is the reason as to why. Like, this is the reason why I don't split it up, and like, you don't really want less, do you? Like, you want it cheaper, and therefore I'll explain why it's this cost. That like, you've always got to be clear on why you do things a certain way, because otherwise you wouldn't do it. Do you know what I mean? Like, if you're removing things, you're telling that person it's not that valuable. That's in my sense. It's like, we do things this way because I've had a lot of experience. I know this works, and it's the best way to approach it, so that's why we do it. If you don't want it, that's okay. You can go elsewhere if that's not what you want. But like, I'm not diluting anything, right, to be able to sort of do something differently. So you've just got to be clear on those boundaries.
Be clear on the boundaries, and online online coaching and online services is amazing if you can tame the beast, because it can get out of control really quickly. And that's what we wanted today to be about. I mean, you can have that amazing flexibility. You can talk to people all over the world. You can scale at a level that's suitable to you. However, there is the realistic side of it, meaning you're going to be spending a lot more time sitting down on a computer, hustling. Your boundaries will be stretched if they're not clear.
Yep.
You know, it is a great challenge if you can harness it and be clear on your expectations, your boundaries, and be clear on your communication as well.
Yeah, awesome. Well, great way to wrap it up.
There you go.
We hope this one resonated, and yeah, just some of the key pointers or key takeaways that I wish that we had heard right at the start, because as we alluded to, hindsight's always a great thing. It's, you know, in hindsight that you come across a lot of these lessons, but we hope this one resonated for you guys and you could take something away from it.
Thanks, everyone. Don't forget to subscribe, share on your story. What else are we doing? It's all new still, isn't it?
That's probably enough. Subscribe and share on your story and tag
things.
us.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys.
If you're enjoying the podcast, please leave us a 5-star review and hit follow so you can stay up to date with our weekly podcast.